Welcome. We're coming in hot with another episode of Camp Content. Today we have Jules Dan. Super excited to talk to him about content marketing, email list management, and what content marketing looks like in the world of ChatGPT. So Jules has a track record of turning clicks into substantial revenue. He's a secret weapon. His 2-year journey has reaped incredible results from a $247,000 launch without affiliates to 150,000 plus coaching program success. His success stems from membership to a top Aussie copywriter, propelling him to deliver astonishing ROI for clients. If you prioritize premium quality and results, Jules is your writer. So what does that all mean? We're going to dive right in. So thank you for joining us today on the show, Jules.
It's so good to be here, Molly. I'm super excited to get your audience excited about the new kid on town that's super popular, ChatGPT.
It's a spicy topic for sure. You know, it's on everybody's minds, and you can see every single tool that you use now. Like even LinkedIn is like, "Hey, do you want us to help write this post you're about to crank out?" So
interesting.
It'll be interesting, to see where it all heads. So tell us a little bit about your journey. You're originally from Australia, is that correct?
I'm originally from Australia, currently in Mexico, but it definitely didn't start out this way. The way it started was in that fateful month, March 2020, where I was a gym instructor the last 6 years, and I was basically told, hey, you can't come back into work because we're closing everything. And I was basically made redundant, couldn't do shit. And I still was battling with my parents being like, are you going to get a real job? I'm like, and I was doing like a bit of Facebook ads on the side for local businesses, and what else did I did? Try like ebooks, I tried blogs, but I found that every time I tried something, there was some weird rule or like a slap or an algorithm change. I'm like, God damn it. So that's why I was like, I need to change to email because it's one of the few things where the rules don't change frequently. So now I'm like, okay, let me try do email copywriting. That sounds like fun. And this was in March 2020 on Upwork, and I was writing for $5 an hour just to get experience. And I would go to listen to this podcast. It was called the Pete Godfrey Persuasion Show. It was an Australian copywriter. I would listen to the show. I would then take a lesson and apply it to a mini client brief. And I would get a result, and then I would then use that little result to then get the next one. And then I finally had, not finally, but at the time on Upwork, someone was like, can you do regular work? I thought, great, let me go to Pete. And I say, hey, I used all your tips on your podcast to land this. I just got this redundancy package from the government. Can I be your apprentice? Because I know you stopped talking about that 4 years ago, but can you restart it for me? And he was like, I'm only doing it because you actually did something with the material. So then I was super excited thinking like I'm pretty top shit because I got these results. And then I would hand in the copy to Pete, and then he'd be like, this is fucking terrible. Like, start again. And he would never sugarcoat stuff. So I'd have to like give back the copy 3-4 times and just repeat it. And it wasn't until about 3 or 4 months into it where I started to get more momentum. The first big result was a 6-figure launch. I'm like, okay. And Pete's like, don't get your head big. Like, he would never give me compliments because he didn't want to let my ego get to me. And I just followed this process where I'd get a good result and then go back to the next client. And then I'd get a brief for a VSL. I'm like, Pete, what the hell do I do? He's like, just calm down, mate. Just calm down. Like, these are the steps. And then again, like, I'd have no idea how to write a VSL. And then Pete we'd think about the strategy and then apply that and get a good result. And then from there, like, I had a whole bunch of repertoire from like VSL, sales pages, emails, and then I went down more into list management because I think in the pitch that I sent to you was that I had this, the day that changed my life was when a family member came from overseas, and they were basically like, they cut me down because I was celebrating a massive win on Facebook. A client was doing $1 million a month on a Facebook lead ad, and he's like, why aren't you that rich? And then I pause and reflect like, oh crap, like, it's got a good point. Like, I'm not doing well financially. I'm just going project to project. I've got a really good portfolio, but I'm not doing well, like, my own business. And then that's when I realized the secret was what my clients were doing well was the relationship they had with their list. And then that's when I positioned myself as a list master and a list profit extractor, and then just went towards email list management because it's a massive headache for businesses. They know they need to do it. it somehow becomes an afterthought. And when they need money, it's like, let's just write to the list. And while it works a few times, it's like, is it going to work? Is that a long-term strategy? Like, probably not. So positioned it a way that it would be like massive value for the people saying yes. And then haven't looked back. Email list management is a lot of fun. And how it all relates to ChatGPT, I can just leave that with you. But I've just done a bit of a word dump.
You did a what? I'm sorry?
Word dump.
Word dump, story dump.
Oh, yeah. No, it's super helpful though. I mean, copywriting is a really hard skill, right? And a lot of people don't know how to do it, right? Because it's not an inherent skill that you learn, and you don't realize like how much psychology is behind all the things that make us want to buy. Like, especially if you're just a consumer, even if you're a marketer, that doesn't make you a good copywriter. Like, those are very, very different skills for sure. So I saw like on your LinkedIn. Well, first of all, let's talk about the Mexico thing. So how long have you been moving around? Everybody uses this digital nomad, which I think is kind of ridiculous. Yeah. I'm like, what's the definition of a nomad? I'm not sure. We're really nailing it there. But remote worker, global remote worker, whatever you want to call it. But, tell us a little bit about that journey real quick.
So I was nomad curious for a long time, but like I said, the financial position never let me do it until I switched to list management, where it was ongoing relationship with the client. It was, not feast famine all the time. I could predict income better. And because I'd be so embedded in the business, being like, I'm getting you great results. I'm like, okay, let me see how many months this lasts. So I don't feel like if I go overseas, the rug will get pulled out under me. And in about 6 months of doing that, then I'm like, okay, let's go do this. I joined this program called Remote Year, which is like digital nomad on training wheels. Basically, it's where you get put with a group of 20 other remote workers, and you go from one city each month to the next, and they give you pay a fee, and they look after the flights, the accommodation, the workspace. There's a city representative who knows everything about the city, from like food, culture, just you name it. So it's just literally the easy button for digital nomadism. It's a great offer. And I've been doing that. The issue I found with it though is that everyone's like, let's go explore. Let's go get drinks every like midweek. And at the start I was like, yeah, I just want to do everything. And about 3 months in, I was like, man, I'm doing enough for client work, but I'm not doing enough for my own.
Yeah, because I'm kind of supposed to be working while I do this. Yeah.
Right. So it was like I did client work barely, and then I did travel, but I didn't do any like focused building my list, building my audience, which I know I should be. And then that's why I was like, okay, I need to sort of have a break from the group for 5 weeks. That's why I'm here in Mexico. And I'm on this podcast. So like, yeah. So trying to do what my intention was, which is to go build my list. So Mexico here, I'm in Puerto Escondido. It's really chill. It's by the beach. It's safe. In the workspace right now, great internet. So it's just been a very good environment to just knuckle down.
Right on. Yeah, I can relate. I moved to Costa Rica 2.5 years ago, and it was a little bit of an adjustment in the beginning to be like, okay, you're not on vacation. get back to your desk. This is you live here. You can't act like this all the time.
Exactly.
Simmer down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What was your biggest distraction?
Everything, moving to another country and everything is different. The language is different. The measurement system is different. The, money is different. So it was a little overwhelming, setting up internet, in another language. It's a little different. Like if you're not with a group and you're leaving in a month, when you're actually trying to like establish roots, it can definitely be very, intimidating, right? And humbling, which I honestly was like, it's probably really good that I have to think about what I say before it comes flying out of my mouth for once, because I'm translating everything in poor Spanish. And so it's really like chilled me out and really made me more intentional with the things I say. And I tend to speak less. And I think all of those are good things for me. Like, absolutely, It's a huge adjustment. So let's talk about, okay, in the last few months, you've been rebuilding your list. And I saw on your LinkedIn that like a quote from a client that said, I only have a small list, less than 2,000 people. And with the one launch generated over 150,000 in sales. Okay, I'm not going to lie. I'm super curious about that. So
yeah, that was the first big one I told you about with Pete.
So how does somebody make $150,000 off of 2,000 people? You know what I mean? What was the offer? What was she selling?
Okay, so I think it's actually great because I was writing some content about this for my YouTube and to break down the principles. So I got the thinking and psychology behind it. So first off, Rebecca loves to give goodwill into the list and she's a good planner. So she'll know, okay, so I'm only going to launch twice per year. That's the cadence that she set. I'm not going to really promote more than that. Might do maybe occasionally on like a Facebook post, but the core business model for her was launching twice. So if you know that that's your objective, then it's easy to work backwards from there because it's like, what do people need to believe in order to buy or make it super easy for this launch? So she already done like the legwork of knowing it's twice a year. I can be prepared. I can create content ahead of time that maybe answers objections, that brings on case studies or intertwine my personality. So I'm like, people like me and stuff. For me, it was kind of easy because she'd set that groundwork for me, but she's like, I need help taking my ideas and I don't want to have to write the copy. Can you just go do it? So then she'd done previous 60, 70K launches, but then when we put in some of the launch principles, happy to talk about that, then put in some like better copy. And then when you have Pete helping me with the strategy and like, hey, maybe you should change this line to this line, that kind of helps too. And I learned a lot in that process. That's how then we could double her previous launch.
That's amazing. So let's talk about ChatGPT and how that all ties in, because I've been using like Jasper for like over a year now, right? Which is a great copywriting tool. And it is helpful, right? And I was using another tool called Surfer. And so I was like Surfer SEO. And so what it does, it gives you like SEO weighted scores for content and like clusters of ideas and things to write about and all that. But if you follow their guidelines and you get the arrow into the green, you know, like the score high enough, what you have is an article that makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. It repeats the same keyword 74 times as per the recommendation. But you read it and you're like, what the hell am I even saying? I'm literally talking in circles. And yes, this is a good SEO score, but anybody's going to get 4 paragraphs into this and be like, Molly has lost her mind. You know what I mean? And so, you know, ChatGPT is really great. AI is really great, but it's certainly not foolproof. So let's talk about that a little bit, you know. How do you navigate that with your clients? Like, are you using ChatGPT with your copywriting, or how's all that work?
Yeah, so it's been a big part of it, helping people understand the principles of good copy. And just so your listeners know, I'm going to tell a little bit of a story about Facebook ads, but I'll link it back because I know this podcast is about content and content marketing and warm organic leads through that, and I'll make it all relevant for you guys. So the biggest problem I faced was when I was working with one client and he had a coaching program, and then I basically built the offer inside of that saying, I'll critique your Facebook ads. Little did I know that coaching and critiquing ads for people who have no experience in writing copy is difficult, to say the least. Like, people aren't versed in the principles of copy. And instead of me banging my head against the wall saying, stop making this mistake, change this again and again, and getting D-grade copy every time, I created I'll backtrack a bit. You said before, Molly, that people can get frustrated on the prompt and then like you get a response and it's terrible, you might go again. I had to push past that frustration for a week because I said, if I don't do this, then I'm going to get replaced, basically. So then I basically created a system for Facebook ads to go from lead to booked call for these people. And it wasn't necessarily like press the button and then it gives you the thing. It's like press the button and it gives you a chunk you might like, and then you might reiterate from there. So I like to think of it as building blocks or Lego blocks, because it's never going to give you every single thing. And doing this trial and error process, and not just me writing copy for myself, I was able to then have all these people who want their ads critiqued. And I had them follow the system, and then we sort of got the base model and then like the base script. And then we like tweaked it a little bit. I'm like, can you change this? Maybe take this out. And then the problem with that was these people were so obsessed with leads that they had no nurture system in place like you would with a good content marketing system in place. This one dude generated 600 leads off of that, like $1,500, but he had nothing in place to follow up. So he was like, these leads are dud. I'm like, well, maybe you didn't have time to get back to them promptly because they just came in too quickly. The good news is you got 600 leads, so we can work with that. Before that, when he gave me his ad, and this is how it all ties into content marketing and how we can make it relevant for your audience, is that when I asked Michael, what are the pain points in your market? And then he wrote them down being like, not enough time, too busy with clients, marketing. I'm like, for far. And this guy was in financial advisory, helping financial advisors or something like that. And I've never worked in that market. Normally it'd be like a 2-hour deep dive call with the client. I'm like, I'm not going to give this guy 2 hours because it might, like, he's not paid for it or whatever. So I'm like, how do I get through this with ChatGPT? And then I'm like, okay, let's reverse engineer the brief like I would with a client. Could you please give me, this is me writing to ChatGPT, could you please give me the top 10 daily frustrations that a financial advisory firm owner would have? We've got 10 here. And then I ask, what would be the single most annoying, most frustrating daily frustration out of these 10? And it said compliance. And I'm like, explain why it's compliance. And then it's like went into like all the pain points, like paperwork, the stress of keeping up at night that you don't know what's going to happen from like the IRS or something like that. And then I'm like, okay, I went down further. I'm like, can you write me a fictitious emotional diary entry following the AIDA writing style? For the listeners, that's attention, interest, desire, action. And then it gave me like a pretty good story. I'm not saying it's like I could completely run with this.
Go ahead.
That's okay. It's like we don't have to necessarily run with this, but if it's given us an idea for this story, maybe we could try and fill in the blanks with a current client, or maybe we can try and fill in our own story because it's given us this idea. So before, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily use it as a press a button and it's got copy for you. I'd use it as a building block, Lego pieces to help build more of the, scaffolding for your marketing plan. And by just going, what are the top 10 daily frustrations in my market, is a really good place to start.
That's brilliant. Yeah. I'm like, I gotta go on ChatGPT and do some research. Sorry, interview's over.
It's a wild system, but were there a lot of learning curves for you when you first started using ChatGPT? Because obviously you're not just going to throw everything into it and kind of hope for the best. Did you like kind of test a few things, like hypothetical situations, and just kind of see where it was taking you?
In which context for writing the ad?
Yeah, just kind of an overview of all of it. Because like I said, the first time you use ChatGPT, you're not just going to be like, I'm just going to throw everything in here and just hope for the best and see what it does. Like, was there a good learning curve for you in terms of like testing and see what it actually is giving you and tweaking it? Because obviously I use it a good bit too, and it starts to learn you once you do those separate tabs and everything and learn what you're trying to do, and it kind of generates its mind of its own. And
I'm still learning, but there's a few things that I've learned along the way which help not make me want to face plant into the ground, basically. So one thing I found is that if you're trying to train it to sound like you, maybe you've heard before, you could be like, here's an email that's trying to promote a podcast. These are podcast emails. Remember this, analyze it, style of tone of voice. And you might give it some emails. This is part 1, this is part 2, this is part 3. And I might even, this is an advanced tip I learned, is that you might attach a name to it, but like, this is Matt. And so every single time it knows that in this thread, it's Matt. And it's also given me the analysis of when I said Matt writes in conversational, it's personable, and he likes to be informal with some witty jokes. It's giving me that language. So then when it gives me garbage, instead of being like, oh, I've got the wrong prompt, what I found was I wrote, what happened to writing like Matt? Matt writes like, word you just gave me, word you just gave me, word you just gave me. And it's going to give you a more refined response. It's not going to be perfect again, and it's not going to replace you, but instead of being like, oh, it's the prompt, like maybe it just needs to be reminded what the model is.
Interesting, because like on Jasper, they have the tone, the brand voice now, and so you give it like previous writing samples, and it's funny because it writes like me now, and I'm like, God, I sound like an idiot. But that's exactly how I write. Like I definitely am like full of jokes and like a lot of sarcasm in my content and misspelled words like y'all or, things like
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
it totally, it puts too many exclamation points into things because I'm like, I don't use that many exclamation points, but the rest of it is pretty spot on. It's kind of crazy how quickly it learned how I talk. Like pretty crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about, you have on your notes here that you have combined, hold on, where is it? You have combined sales, deliverability, and ninja automation. And I am a huge fan of automation. So let's talk about how you're using automation in your services with your clients.
Okay. So a good business needs to have roughly 4 to 5 things in order to function: acquisition, conversion, then you're going to need fulfillment. That's the part where everyone trips up on. Everyone gets really seduced by the first two.
Right.
And you can definitely use email in these parts. And then there's also email for fulfillment. And then you can also use email for ascension. And so those are the 4 things: acquisition, conversion, fulfillment, ascension. And then if you want to say retention, but Dan Kennedy would say ascension's the best retention model. So 4 or 5 is
ascension?
Ascension is when you
to me. What is that?
Is when you basically upsell someone. So you take someone from one level to the next. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you spent like $10,000 for a dentist to fix up everything and they know all the little ins and outs of your mouth, your problem, your case, if someone and let's just say it's been 2 years, if someone down the road offered like a much cheaper cleaning or whatever, and also this like a follow-up for your mouth, would you go there knowing that they have to explain everything again, that the other dentist has all the other things? They know you very well. It's like an inconvenience, right? So that pain of changing, or that pain of like disconnection from that relationship is so great. That's why Ascension is so good. And you can facilitate that with email. There's heaps of different sequences we can go down. So I think in terms of acquisition conversion, which is the most sexy, we can start with that one.
Right on. Yeah, I've definitely heard of like the order bump and all that, where people are already comfortable with you, working with you. So why not spend a little bit more? So what does working with you look like, Jules? Like what is it? What does it cost? How long does it take? Who's your ideal client? Who are you looking for?
Okay, so cool. So what I used to do was think that everyone has a one size fits all list, which is not necessarily the case. And sometimes people would just rather go do it themselves, and then, I'd be lost there. So what I've now introduced is to do what I like to call an email profits roadmap. And on the profits roadmap, we sort of figure out those 4 profit power levers that I was talking about: acquisition, conversion, fulfillment, and then ascension. Like, how do we fit email into all of these? And it's looking at the business owner's list and saying, like, what are you doing well right now in these 4 things? And then what's sort of missing? What's your end objective? Are you trying to do a big launch this quarter? Are you just trying to sell a product and do daily emails? Like, what is missing from the strategy? That's the first part. And then the second part is figuring out, okay, so who do you want to attract and who do you want to repel? So that's the personality style emails and pulling that out of people, which I call the profitable persona. I would normally do that when I would onboard people, but I thought if someone just wants to go do it themselves, then they can get a full report of how this would work for themselves. And then the final part is the ninja stuff that we were talking about before. Like, what's your deliverability like? Are your emails hitting spam? Are they going to the Gmail promo tab? Let's look at that. And then I can give you some actionable steps. And then at the end of it, I give them this action plan for 90 days, 3 months. Like, this is what you need to achieve what you want to do. Here are the steps. Here's a profitable persona. Here's all the emails and content you need leading up to that. You can go do it yourself. Or if you like, we can then continue this plan and I can implement it for you. And that's basically the first step of the journey.
There it is. So like the biggest thing is, Molly, you're on mute, but obviously the biggest thing with everybody is they're like kind of terrified. It's like, AI is going to take my job. What are we going to do? Everybody's going to lose their job. So, I mean, There's obviously benefits, doubts. What are kind of the biggest dangers, doubts that you potentially could see of it as a whole, and that could even come in and affect you? That might have you a little worried.
For AI coming, okay. Interesting. It's
I gotta
definitely
imagine it's gotta be one thing that you're kind of like, oh, what if this happens? It might kind of mess me up a little or something. But I don't know. Could
in
not.
terms of in the marketing space and in my world, or just as
Yeah.
a whole.
Oh, we'll do
Yeah.
both. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm interested because ChatGPT it draws from a lot of past experience for how to write stuff. I'm interested, and for the everyday sort of people who just want like C to B grade copy just to have something. Like, at what point is everyone going to be like, "Oh, this is from ChatGPT. It all sounds the same," and then how do we innovate from there? And that's why I sort of think there's always going to be a space for people who want really good copy to think outside the box, who know how to maybe split test when the ChatGPT version fails. Like, what do you do as a backup? There's that, but it's just going to become a big cesspit of the same. And this is the other thing. Okay, I think this is the biggest one. It doesn't really have to do with copy. It has to do with authenticity of testimonials. I don't know how we're going to monitor how a video testimonial is real if we can create deep fakes and maybe someone creates like an authenticated like badge which says this is a real testimonial. But then how do we know someone's just not going to create a counter AI software to like counter that and just create a deep fake again? So I think authenticity with proof and testimonials is going to be very interesting the next 5 years or so.
That's a really good point. I think, we talk a lot about authenticity with the rise of ChatGPT and how podcasting is still a great opportunity because it's like you can't fake the funk with a podcast, like just as real people having a real conversation. And so it might prompt somebody to say like, oh, I like Jules, I like his vibe, like I want to work with him. And so you can't do that with AI, no matter how well the post is written. It's just not going to replace that. But when it comes to testimonials, a 2-minute video, that would be really easy to fabricate. You'd be like, exactly. Bill Gates is like, Molly Ruland is the best. Like, in fact, I gotta go. I gotta get on deepfake.com. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty scary because even there's like a company called Descript, and they are a podcast editing software, right? But they like you can fake the funk with them, and that is wild to me. Now you can tell that it's fake, but these programs are improving every 10 seconds, so it's just a matter of time before it's like
here's my interview, like you said, with this prominent person, and because they're so big they'll have no idea that you even published this.
Like hanging out with Joe Rogan, although that probably wouldn't be a good marketing plan these days. People don't seem to like him, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it is pretty crazy. I didn't really think about that, but I think, I mean, we're just in that age where we're going to have to question everything, which honestly might be good considering where we've gone for the last few years with a lot of the misinformation. I think that it's going to only get worse with ChatGPT, but maybe it'll armor people a little bit better to start questioning everything. Like, question everything. It doesn't matter what side of whatever debate you're on, question all of it, because all of it could be fake. And I think we need to head there as a society because too many people are believing things that are just not true, at all.
Yep.
One can only hope,
It seems if you can fake a testimonial, then people can like weaponize content to make people believe a certain way. I don't know. That's another rabbit hole, but yeah.
Yeah, or with the whole like cancel culture, like somebody could say that I said something I didn't, and your business could get shut down overnight, and you're like, I said a bunch of other offensive stuff. Where were you guys for that? But I didn't say this one, because we're all imperfect humans, I was thinking about some friends of mine from grade school and the jokes we used to make with each other, and I'm like, thank God nobody knows about that because people would shut me down. We were just kids being kids with each other, but it's a whole different world now. So. All right. So Jules, how can people find you? Do you have an offer right now? Is there something in particular you'd like to share with our audience before we head out?
Cool. So if you guys are interested, I know it's the Content Pass podcast. If you're interested to hear about the principles I talk about, how I went from an ad to a booked call using what I call the 4-hour GPT cash campaign, you can definitely apply those principles to writing content. It's just got the whole mix from ad to email, whatever. So you can go find that at julesdan.com/GPT gift. And that's my gift to you guys, the listeners.
That's amazing. Well, I'm going to check it out. I've been doing a lot more management of my email list, and I've been pretty consistent with my newsletter
Oh, good stuff.
on LinkedIn, so I'm like killing it. Well, I'm old, Jules. I know I don't look a day over 26, but, don't be fooled by the blur on the camera. In my day, a newsletter was like, you had to have 5 components. It was an update. It was a recipe. It was pictures from the local pumpkin patch. It was like you had to have like all these elements in it.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of people my age and probably a little younger, feel like they have to do so much for a newsletter. And once I realized I just need to talk. I just need to talk about something I care about. And it doesn't have to be 17 paragraphs long like surfers trying to tell me it does, I can just write a 3-paragraph one or a 6, depending on how long it takes me to say what it is I want to say. And it became a lot less cumbersome and a lot more easier to manage. But I don't know if it's effective, right? So I'm curious. I'm going to follow your gift lead, and I'm going to check it out. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you again sooner than later, because what you're doing makes a whole lot of sense to me. And, I think we live in an age where it's like more is more, and it's like not always, especially with podcasting, right? Like we swim a little upstream. We believe that, identify people you want to do business with and interview them, identify 10 people, do 10 episodes, do them really well, nurture the relationship, then you get the SEO and the content, but it's really about the relationship. So instead of doing 100 episodes this year and just looking for the next person to put in the seat, why don't you just interview the people you want to do business with? Less is less. Like going viral on TikTok doesn't mean discovery calls. Going viral on the internet, having a LinkedIn post with 1,700 comments does not translate into discovery calls and closed deals.
Yeah.
So,
exactly. I really resonate with that message of less is more. Like I've seen this with the people with the small lists are the ones who get the biggest results, are the ones who are okay with saying no, who have systems in place to make sure that they repel everyone, that there's a double opt-in. It's hard to get in, that they're aware that maybe they're going to be talking about this topic, and they're always outperforming. I've seen people with a $40,000 person list. I remember I did a webinar launch for that person, and it just didn't do as good compared to Rebecca was 2,000. Like, what gives? So it's just always, like you said, less is more.
Less is more. And we're really in this society of just like more. And you're like, well, what about the people you interviewed last week? Did you follow up with them? Did you tell them that their podcast is live? Did you create graphics for them? Did you ask for a meeting? Like, why did you interview them in the first place? And people are like, oh, yeah, because it's this whole like more, like more, impressions is better and more, views is better. But, to me, more closed deals is better. And a lot of times when you have a small list, they're choosing to get your content, right?
Exactly.
And so that makes it different. So actually, before we go, how do you feel about the LinkedIn newsletter? Because I feel like that thing is on fire. Are you spending any time with LinkedIn newsletters?
I to be fair, Molly, I stopped doing LinkedIn posts, I think a year ago. I like to call them, for some reason, so forgive my vulgarness, I like to call most content booty call content because it's fun, you stick around for a little bit, but then it goes away and you never hear from it again. So then that's why I switched to YouTube, because I'm like, I can create this once and it keeps working for me. So I stopped LinkedIn a while ago, but could you tell me what you found to be most insightful with LinkedIn newsletters? I'd be keen to hear it.
Well, I've got like 5,000 followers or so. I think, you and I are about the same, like with followers and, people with connections or whatever the whole thing is, right? And, when I'm not a huge fan of LinkedIn because, a couple summers ago when all the protests were happening, it really brought out a lot of people's terrible beliefs about things. So I sort of divested from LinkedIn for a long time. But I went back recently and started a newsletter, and I started it, and by the end of the day, I had 500 subscribers.
Really? What?
Yeah, and so I was like, what the heck is going on here? Because we have active campaign, and like the open rate, the visibility, the comments, the engagement, everything is off the chart. So we're at like over 1,000 subscribers now.
Oh yeah. What's your topic?
I'll send it to you on LinkedIn, and it's called Postcards from the Edge, and it's just like a little blurb about, like, today's went out and I said, downloads don't matter. Like, prove me wrong. Like, downloads don't generate revenue. Like, closed deals do, relationships do, not downloads. And so with our clients, we don't care if you get 10 downloads or 10 million, because you're focusing on who you're interviewing and forging that relationship. And if you get downloads, that's great. That's extra icing on the cake. You know what I'm saying? It's an extra shot in your margarita, but it's not, driving the whole train, right? You know what I mean? So what it is the relationships. And so I just do little blurbs, or, hey, this is what's going on in the podcast industry, and here's how I feel about it. I keep them short and sweet. Usually if I'm driving down the road or when I have that idea, I'll just transcribe it into my phone and then tighten it up and send it to my assistant, and she'll put it out. But I'm getting discovery calls off it. I'm getting, inbound requests for meetings from it for sure. And so as much as I don't like LinkedIn, the newsletter is kind of popping. I
have so many questions.
I mean,
I have so many questions.
Who would have thought, right? You know what I mean? And it's the same newsletter that's going out to, like, our active campaign list. So it's really not a big deal for me to copy and paste it into LinkedIn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like the same work, But yeah, I we'll have to talk about that more offline, because I'm like, I started it, and then, like, I went back a half hour later and I hit refresh and I had 25 subscribers, and I thought, oh, well, they must just start you with 25, like, here you go, here's 25. And then, like, a few hours later I hit refresh and it was like 104, or like an hour later I refreshed, it was like 149. And I was like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
500 subscribers from the first newsletter put out. And what I like about it, I know we're going over our time here, but it sends a notification on LinkedIn, to everybody saying, hey, Molly just put out a newsletter. And it sends an email that goes into the inbox, not into promotion or spam. It says, Molly just put out a newsletter. And you can read it in the email, or you can go to LinkedIn and watch it. So the delivery rate is considerably higher than, like, active campaign, because I think a lot of those are going into God only knows where, email purgatory. So yeah, well, maybe that'll be part 2. We'll have you back. We'll do a little LinkedIn newsletter research, but I'm curious to know what, your thoughts on that, because I just can't deny how much engagement.
I would love to learn more and come back to you with some, data and, like, my 2 cents after looking at it, because if what you're saying is true, then it's an excellent second touch on top of email, which is when you're still using email content. And it's like, my mind as well is like, how do you talk between the two? Do you slowly take people from the LinkedIn one onto your real list? Do you do what Ben Settle might do, is where you put out older content on LinkedIn, and then on the list is where it's more current and timely?
Yeah, so I don't know. Those are good things to think about, right? And strategize about it, because I definitely don't have a strategy right now, and I'm all about strategy. So that's why I'm pretty sure you're going to hear from me. But
I'm definitely going to be looking into this for sure. Thank you for bringing that up.
We'll definitely do a part 2 when you've done your research. We'll schedule again, and we'll talk. We'll do a whole episode about the LinkedIn newsletter, pros and cons, and how to make it work. But well, Jules, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was really fun chatting with you. And if you find yourself nomading your way over to Costa Rica, make sure you hit me up, and I can hook you up for some cool places to stay.
Oh, Molly, Matt, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I hope your audience has taken away something actionable from ChatGPT today.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Camp Content. This is Molly.
And this is Matt.
And we are Heartcast Media, a.k.a. Camp Content, and we appreciate all of your support. If you found this content valuable, please comment on social media, LinkedIn, wherever you find us, and we will make sure to comment back.
And be sure to go on and subscribe and like on your favorite platforms, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, you name it. Leave us that subscription. Leave us that good review.
We'll love you forever. So until next time, be excellent to each other, and we'll see you next week.
Produced by Heartcast Media.